So in this video I'd like to share with you another piece of music I recorded back in the 1980s from my Rediscovered Tapes. Now if you want a little bit more information about the Rediscovered Tapes and the gear that I used, there should be a card popping up here with a link to that video, and there will also be a link in the description. Essentially my synthesizer gear consisted of a Roland 100M system, a Roland RE501 Space Echo, I got the name right in this video, a Roland TR606 Drumatix drum machine, and I was recording to a Teac A3440 4-track tape recorder. Now I'd like to say a few words about the piece of music, but before we get into that I thought it would be interesting to explain the mixing or the mastering process that I used to create these pieces of music. Now I had a 4-track machine, but 8-track, 16-track and even 24-track tape recorders were becoming available, and you would find these in professional studios. And their process was to record on the multi-track tape recorders, of course, and then to master or mix or bounce down all the tracks into a stereo master tape. And to do this, they would use a dedicated 2-track stereo tape machine. At the time, I think the Revox, I think it was the B77, was one of the stereo mastering machines of choice. And yes, I really wanted one of these, but I already spent a fortune on the Teac 4-track machine, on the Roland 100M system and the other pieces of gear, and it was just something I couldn't really afford. Now in the 80s, as well as writing and recording pieces of electronic music, I was also writing pop songs. Along with many other people, and the basic process for trying to get one of your songs recorded was to send them off to a publishing company or to a record company in the hope that they would like the song and pass it on to an artist or someone who might want to record it. And the way these songs were distributed was to send them off on a cassette tape. We didn't really have audio CDs at the time, and the cassette was a very convenient medium for doing this. So my basic process was to record the song onto the multitrack and to mix or bounce down, or even master if you want to use that term, directly to cassette. Now I had a dual cassette player and recorder, so I would create a master on a cassette, and then when I wanted to send it to a publishing company, I would just run off a copy of that and send that off to the publishing company. Now I reckon I probably wasn't losing a massive amount of quality here, because I was cutting out one audio copy onto the stereo master machine and going direct to cassette. But although I was copying from cassette to cassette, but these were really demos, they weren't finished products in any sense of the word, and the intention was just to give the recording company an idea of the song. Although of course we tried to make as professional and good sounding demos as we possibly could. Now I used the term master very loosely, because there was no compression involved in this at all. There's no EQ involved in this at all. The mastering process, it was really just a mix down process, which involved mixing down the multi-tracks onto a cassette. And to do this I had a little homemade passive mixer, very low tech even in the 1980s, but I used this to route audio sources such as the Roland 100M system and the Drumatix, and as I mentioned in the previous video I had an Elka Orla organ, so I used the little mixer to route these to the Teac 4-track, and I used it to mix down the 4-track tracks when I was bouncing down to the 4-track, and I also used it when mixing the 4-track to the cassette. Yes, I know it's quite an involved and primitive way to mix music, but we didn't have computers at the time. I couldn't afford a dedicated mixer, so this did a reasonable job. So I would just like to mention a couple of other aspects of this particular piece of music before we get into it. I recorded the bulk of the tune. You will know what I mean when you hear it. So I had that recorded onto the multi-track, and I thought it would be nice to finish it off with a little drum, sort of military drum pattern, and a little musical riff which I had been playing with. So I recorded that at the end of the main piece, as you will hear. Now the little tune, which is which plays over the drum pattern. This is actually not mine. It comes from Bizet's La Lessienne Suite number 1. Now my pronunciation is probably absolutely terrible, but I will put the name on screen if you want to check this out. There are videos of this piece on YouTube, and you can probably get them on a streaming service. It's a super piece of music, lots of melody and tune in there, but I felt that the main initial theme, which I messed around with and used at the end, was it fitted the vibe of the piece. Good musicians borrow, great musicians steal, providing that copyright lawyers don't find you first, of course. I'm paraphrasing a comment by T.S. Eliot about writers, just in case you're wondering what that was about. And then I thought it would be nice to include this little phrase at the beginning of the piece as well as at the end, to top and tail it with this same piece of music. We love symmetry in music, don't we? Now in a modern DAW, this would just be the simplest thing in the world. You would just select everything in the track and drag it to the right, and then you and just copy the end and paste it into the beginning. It was not anywhere near as easy to do this with a tape recording. What I had to do was to determine how long this intro section was going to be, and then work out how far in front of the main piece I had to start recording. So there's a lot of trial and error involved in that, and that is a problem which just simply wouldn't appear in modern day recording. Now, having said all that, when you listen to the piece, you will notice that the melody line in the intro and at the end, it's not very loud, and some of the notes seem to be very quiet. If you turn up the volume, I think you will hear that all the notes are there, but some of them seem to have been reduced in volume. They didn't exactly drop out, just the volume level isn't consistent. Now, how this happened, I don't really know. I can only assume that when I was mixing this down, I didn't get the levels quite right. This recording is taken directly from the DAT tape, so this is obviously how I mixed it down. I didn't do a very good job. Anyway, that is just one of the hazards of analog tape recording, and I just thought it'd be interesting to explain what happened there. So thank you for staying with me so far. I hope you found it interesting. It's a little bit of a history lesson, but I hope you appreciate the benefits of modern DAWs. They are wonderful and I love them, and it's really difficult for me to imagine now how I went through this recording process back in the 1980s. Now, as with the other pieces, I've added some video and some still images to the piece to hopefully increase your enjoyment of it. I have to say I had great fun adding the visuals to this. It sort of tells a little story, perhaps in an impressionistic way, but I hope you enjoyed. So thank you for watching. If you like this video and the music and you would like to see more, then please consider subscribing. So thank you very much again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.